When you heal your gut, that helps you find your gifts because you heal your gut and you can then think better because that gut brain connection is connected and you get more clarity in your life. So not only does it change your health, but it literally changes the direction of your life.
You know that moment where you're lying in bed trying to fall asleep, but your brain is like, let's overthink that one thing you said in seventh grade? That's when I reach for my lavender flower oil from Wish Garden Herbs. This is my nervous system's ride or die. It is pure, calming lavender oil, no weird additives or synthetic junk that I will massage right into my wrists, neck, or temples anytime I need to reset or relax. It smells like a spa and honestly makes me romanticize bedtime like I'm in a Nancy Meyers movie. I also love to use it before meditation, as part of my post shower routine after a chaotic day, or mid spiral when I need to come back to earth. It's one of those small rituals that make a big difference. So if you need help winding down, getting centered, or just want to smell like a lavender goddess, you already know, go to wishgardenherbs.com and use code EVERYGIRL20 for 20% off. If you're bloated every day, constantly craving sugar, dealing with breakouts or brain fog, exhausted no matter how much you sleep, or struggling with constipation or inconsistent digestion, your gut is trying to tell you something. This episode is going to help you find out what it's trying to tell you and how to heal your gut once and for all. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Amy Shah. She's a double board certified MD, bestselling author, Activia's official gut glow up guru, and thanks to her over 2 million followers across Instagram and TikTok, she is the internet's go-to for breaking down all things digestion and gut health in a way that's actually understandable. Today, we talk about everything from IBS and SIBO to stress and kombucha, the silent gut issues most of us are walking around with that impact everything from your hormones to your weight to your skin, the actual gut routine that she swears by, and her go-to method to heal the gut that she calls the 30-33 method. Plus, we play a little hot or not gut health edition where I ask her what she really thinks about wellness trends like probiotics, celery juice, and going gluten-free. Trust me, some of her answers will surprise you. Let's get into it, and happy gut healing. Welcome, Dr. Amy Shah, to the Everygirl podcast. I'm curious if there was an experience for you, either with your own health or with your patients, that made you rethink how we define health or what feeling healthy actually means.
Yeah, I had my own personal wake up call. I had a terrible car accident, and it was during a time where I felt so overwhelmed and rushed. And you know that feeling where you're always in your head, like people are talking to you and things are happening around you, but you're focused on your next thing on your to do list. You're like rushing to get to the next thing. And I felt like I was in a perpetual state of like stress, a lion chasing you, and you being in your sympathetic nervous system because your body thinks you're in danger all the time. And so I remember that the day I was rushing out of my office because there was a meeting that my partners wanted to do at the end of the day, and I couldn't say no. Even though I had to pick up my kids, I agreed to stay because I didn't really have very good boundaries and I wasn't really sure of myself as a new doctor. And so I stayed, and then I had to rush and I couldn't even like listen to the meeting because I was in my head of like, okay, I have 10 more minutes, I have 5 more minutes, I have 3, and then running out that back door and getting into that car. And of course, it's an accident. So like anything, it could have happened at any time in my life, but at that moment when I was kind of thankfully I survived with, some minor injuries that I took a few days off to deal with and the cuts and scrapes and stuff. But I thought to myself, something's got to change. I cannot live my life like this. My hormones were out of control. I was always either bloated or constipated or having some kind of gut issues after eating. My mind was always foggy and stressed. And so that was my wake up call. I was like, it's now or never. Like, I have to make a change.
I think everybody listening can relate to that feeling of like, okay, I have 10,000 things I have to get to. Here's me trying to fit everything in. You feel that feeling of like you're being chased by a tiger when it's really just, you have so many meetings ahead of you. This is happening at work. You've got to pick up your kids. So how did your relationship with stress change and how did that impact your body?
I had to come to terms with what was happening. So, what I was doing, I know a lot of people can relate to this. I thought to be successful as a mom, as a physician, as a female business owner, I had to skimp on sleep. I had to skimp on my walks and hikes and all that stuff because there was just no time for that, right? There was no time to kind of like relax. So what I ended up doing is I was like staying up late just to kind of catch up on work and then waking up early because I thought that's what I was supposed to do to be productive and not getting any sunlight, not taking care of my gut, not eating foods that were good for me. And I literally was just in this perpetual state of rushing through life. It's like burning the candle at both ends. Like I was asking a lot of my brain and my body, but I was never giving it any recovery or sleep that it needed to recover or the food that it needed to actually recover and repair. And I got myself into a situation where not only did I look terrible, like I hated the person in the mirror, I also hated the person inside, the person I was becoming, like irritable and tired and stressed all the time. And so what I first did is like, okay, I realized, wow, I used to love taking walks in the sun or going for a jog in the sun or going for a hike. Like I love nature, but I thought that was a luxury. So the first thing I did is starting to do a little more like actual light and movement. So movement in nature was something that I used to enjoy. And I knew that could help me not only decrease the stress and clear my head while I was trying to figure out the next steps, but also I thought it would be an easy first step.
I love that you said it used to feel like such a luxury. I think a lot of people, especially as moms, or if they have busy careers, or like even having breakfast feels like a luxury at this point, when really these are the things that should be our basics. So I think flipping the switch of what was once a luxury now becomes a non negotiable. It's like the
Yeah.
way that you look at them helps you reprioritize what you need to in order to take care of yourself.
Yeah, it's like I knew all this knowledge about that gut brain connection and how it's connected to hormones and how it can help us. And I wasn't putting it into play. And so I thought, I need to start to put these things into action. I know the research. So I was like, I need to start applying it for myself. And then as I start to do that, then I start to share.
Between, bloating, chronic constipation, IBS, I feel like everybody is struggling with some kind of gut health issue these days. So, why is that? Why are we all having gut symptoms?
I know. It's like the gut health and the gut talk hashtags on
Yeah.
social media will have more than 6 billion views. I mean, even big well-known brands like I actually teamed up with Activia to serve as the gut glow up guru because we're talking about healthy habits, total body wellness, and that includes gut health. We want people to prioritize their gut health. And we want to show that like when you put your gut first, that is actually going to have a powerful impact all over your body. And so that is something I think is luckily coming to the forefront for a lot of people. There's a lot of interest in it, but there's also a lot of confusion. I want to demystify gut health. How can we get credible, personal, modern, digestible information out to the world?
Are people having more issues with gut health nowadays than we have before? Or do you think it's just because we're talking about it more? Like, why is it that I feel like every single person has some kind of issue?
Yeah. I mean, okay, let's put it this way. Modern life has paid zero attention to that gut microbiome and that gut brain connection. And so almost everything we have done that's modern has basically ignored this. So, for example, I'll give you a very easy example. Computers and iPhones and all these sources of light that we're looking at late at night, right? And there's really no regard to circadian rhythms when these things have come into our life. Like nobody's telling us like, hey, don't look at these things late at night or don't put it next to your bed and look at it in the middle of the night or this kind of light is going to disturb your circadian rhythms, which in turn will disrupt that gut brain connection. Fun fact, our gut bacteria, like the trillions that live in there, they actually need to see light and dark at the right times. They work on circadian rhythms too. And so when you're
Wow.
getting disrupted light, when you're not moving, when you're eating all these ultra processed foods that look like foreign to the gut, these are all things that we're doing in our modern life that's basically taking our gut and disregarding what it needs. So our food, our lack of exercise, our disrupted circadian rhythms, almost like everything that we've done in the last 50 years really has been negative to our gut. And I think that's why we're seeing kind of the cumulative impact now. In fact, there are studies that show that we have a lot less gut bacteria than every generation before us. So everything we're doing is like killing off that very, very important ecosystem that's located in our gut.
Whoa, that is crazy, but it also makes so much sense why we're all having some kind of gut issues. And then it
Yeah.
sounds like it's coming from so many angles, which I think people are used to thinking of, gut health, my digestion has to do with just the foods I'm eating, but it sounds like there's so many other things that we're doing that is causing the gut to have all these issues.
Imagine if you really didn't pay attention to one part of your body. You never ever worked out your arms. And then, like, there's an epidemic of everyone having a lot of weakness in their arms because nobody was paying attention to it. It's like this is a huge, way bigger than our arms, like a huge part of our body that's been completely ignored.
Especially as a doctor, are there certain, like, categories of what affects gut health the most? Like, do you look at certain things like first diet, then circadian rhythm, then
Yeah.
movement, or, like, how do you prioritize?
Yeah. I mean, it's all together. I love talking about nutrition because, listen, most people are eating 3, 5, 7 times a day. So it's like you have like 5 to 7 opportunities to improve your gut health. You can literally change your entire gut microbiome, strengthen it by eating the right foods. If you're having a probiotic yogurt, Activia, and you're having fiber full food and you're having protein in your diet, you're going to notice that your gut health improves within days. And we have good opportunity to change something very quickly. Same thing though with exercise and with circadian rhythms. Like, you don't need to do this for like many, many months and years to actually notice a difference in your gut because the half life, the life of a gut bacteria is very short. And so things that you can do actually make a huge impact, which is why I love this world because you get people who are like, wow, I feel better within days.
Yeah, that your gut can actually change that much is actually really exciting and, I think is helpful to empower you because otherwise it does feel so overwhelming to feel
Yeah,
like, "Oh, I have to make all
little
these
things.
changes." Yes,
Yeah.
but, like, knowing that a little bit can make a difference almost immediately is so empowering.
I love that there's like such rapid feedback that your body will give you when you start to do these things that you're like, wow, like for me, when I went through this horrible car accident, I started to put these things into play and I was like, I started to kind of feel better within like 3 to 5 days. I started to feel different. And that actually as a self-fulfilling prophecy. So as your gut bacteria start to get the right foods and you start to do the right activities and start to get sunlight and sleep and all that stuff, they start to ask you for that. So like the gut bacteria that you have now cultivated are going to ask you for more of that. So it's like you can do more and more and more. It's hard to get started, but once you do, it's like your body actually craves it.
Like, once you feed that gut bacteria, then it only grows and wants more. Because 'cause I've heard the opposite with, like, sugar, for example. If you're feeding that gut bacteria that loves sugar, it's going to keep asking you for sugar, and that's where a lot of sugar cravings come from. Is that
Yes.
true?
Yes. That's why, like, I always try when I go on vacation not to go more than 3 days off of my healthy routine because it can be really hard once you're like way off and your gut bacteria have now started to shift and your habits have started to wane. And so, taking a weekend off or a long weekend off, no big deal. You can get right back at it. But when you start to take more time off, it's much harder to like get back to being healthy again.
That makes sense because it's not even just from the almost, like, psychological habit part of it, but it's also the gut bacteria that you're feeding. You might be, starving off good bacteria and feeding the bad bacteria.
Yeah, and the new bacteria is like, "Hey, what about that like sugary drink that you were drinking?" And like, I want more of that because it's been doing that now for a week or two.
So what are some, like, maybe, like, 3 things that, first of all, you would, like, stop doing? The most common mistakes that you see people making that you wanna be like, "Everybody should stop doing these things to improve your gut health."
Okay. Number one is not eating fiber. So what happens is like we think we're eating healthy and we're getting a Starbucks or we're getting like just a quick to go meal from drive through. These things have very little fiber in them. And so what we ended up doing is in American society, 95% of people are not getting the adequate fiber that we need to help our gut bacteria even live. And so that is, I think, one of the biggest mistakes because I know protein is like such a huge push right now and having such a moment and it's also great for gut health. But my really big mistake that I was making and I see so many people making is like they're not even thinking about fiber or they're not even don't even know where it exists. And same thing with probiotic foods. I think probiotics is like you don't even think about that during the day. And so I want to bring those things back into the conversation. So one of the mnemonics I like to use is the 30-33 because it helps people stop making that biggest mistake, which is eating a diet that is like devoid of food for your gut bacteria.
Tell me about the 30-33 method because this is really interesting and I love a number because it makes it so helpful.
It's 30 grams of protein when you have your first meal. So it could be a delayed breakfast. It doesn't have to be like wake up within 5 minutes, have 30 grams. It's like when you're eating your first meal, 30 grams of fiber throughout the day. And again, I told you like 95% of Americans don't get that 30 grams. And then it's three probiotics, three probiotic foods every single day. So probiotic foods, I think people don't even know what they often are. It's like yogurt. Activia is my go-to gut health yogurt, then it's sauerkraut, then it's kefir. Fermented foods are like an amazing way to get live active bacteria. They're gut promoting foods. For fiber, a lot of people don't understand where to get fiber, but like if you're eating, say, an egg scramble in the morning with veggies and a yogurt with berries or something. Those are amazing sources. Berries are one of my favorite sources of fiber. Chia seeds is one of my other favorite sources of fiber. 30 grams of protein, I think that is something that a lot of people have been talking about on social, getting either like an eggs, yogurt, shake, smoothie kind of breakfast can get you kind of that 30 grams of protein. And so that's a great framework because I like the 30-33 because it's not like you have to be on a particular diet or you have to buy all these like special things. And it's not a diet really at all. It's just a framework.
Yeah, and it's really easy to remember too. And I love the addition of having 3 probiotic foods because that it isn't something that we talk that much about. I think we think of, let me take a probiotic supplement and I'm
Yeah.
good. What would you say is the big difference between taking a probiotic supplement versus having those 3 sources of probiotic foods?
Here's the thing. Every single culture in the world has fermented foods incorporated because it's like the thing of like ancient wisdom. They didn't really even know exactly like that it was feeding the gut microbiome and helping it grow. But it's like this thing that we did all over the world in every single culture that was promoting gut health. It's like an ancient natural thing. So that's why I was like, I think it's really great to bring it back because we have tons of research on, tribes, for example, even modern times. Like you look at rural areas, and they often have a fermented food incorporated into their diet. It's well studied. It's something that's been part of our culture. The problem is we don't need to ferment foods anymore. Refrigeration and other ways to preserve foods, as we know, can be negative, is something that kind of made fermentation not really necessary anymore. And so you'll see that even pickles. Pickles used to be fermented live probiotic food, but now there's just vinegar added to it and then they're put in a jar and either it's on your shelf or in your fridge and it's not really live active bacteria anymore. And so that's why I think because of the history, because of the research, because of what we know about diet, I think as much as you can get from eating foods, the better.
That totally makes sense that it's like comes from this ancient wisdom. That's what our bodies are meant to eat. We're meant to get these amazing probiotics and good bacteria from food instead of from a pill. And I would imagine our body knows better what to do with that.
What I say about magnesium, for example, I love magnesium and I tell women, especially like in the perimenopause when they're like approaching 40, like try to get as much magnesium in your diet as possible. And then you can supplement with it as well. It's not like it's mutually exclusive with each other, but I never think that, oh, you can just like take like 97 supplements and then like that you can just eat junk food all day. It's like it has to be hand in hand.
Can you explain what probiotics do for the gut and also what fiber does for the gut? Like we hear these things are so important. Why?
Okay, so probiotics means that it actually contains bacteria in them. So the good thing about America is like if you take a product, so you look at the back, they have to be labeled if it has live bacteria because it's a safety issue, right? So there's certain people with like low immune systems or whatever that can't. So every food in America has to have a labeling in the back. So if you look at the label in the back, it will say, has probiotics and what type often is labeled as well. So that's a nice, easy way to just know that there's live bacteria in there. The best thing about probiotics is that it's actually bacteria that can kind of seed into your gut. So something like a bifidobacterium is in the product, it will go into your system and then like can get incorporated into your gut. Now, fiber is something different. Fiber is like food for the gut bacteria. So the bacteria that we already have, maybe you're trying to grow that good gut bacteria, you want to feed it the food it needs to grow. So that's like fiber. Something is like, easy as keeping the skin on your potatoes, or if you're eating kiwi fruit, like biting it like an apple and getting extra fiber, eating berries and having, chia seeds. Like I said, these are great ways to add more fiber to your diet so that your gut bacteria actually has something to eat when it gets to the colon.
To allow those probiotics to survive.
Yeah. So it's like we
Yeah.
want food for them.
We talk a lot about SIBO overgrowth, like that's becoming more and more
Yeah.
understood. We talk a lot about leaky gut. Can you talk about what these things are, how common you actually see them in your practice, and what can we do to heal from them?
Yeah. So SIBO means that there is bacteria, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. So we're supposed to have bacteria in our colon. That's the large intestine. And that's where they live. That's where the microbiome lives. That's where all of these great things are happening and the messages to our brain and our hormones and all that stuff. What often happens is that there's a dysbiosis, meaning like the wrong bacteria are growing and they're growing in the wrong places. And SIBO is basically another word for dysbiosis, meaning like your bacteria are in the wrong place at the wrong time, kind of thing. And often this is an issue because of our lifestyles and diets. And of course, there's a genetic predisposition, but like there is a lot that happens because of the way we eat and live. Same thing with leaky gut. So leaky gut is like our actual gut lining is only one layer of our own cells. And then we have a thick, thick layer of our gut bacteria, our gut microbiome, like protecting that one layer. But imagine you are eating poorly, you're taking a lot of antibiotics, whatever, like life steroids, whatever, all these things that happen in our toxic world. You're drinking a lot of alcohol, whatever, that are killing that gut bacteria. That thick layer of protection for your one layer of cells is gone now. And there's a lot more toxins and a lot more things that can seep into our body from the gut because there's not enough protection. And that's what we call leaky gut.
And how common do you think these two things really are? How much are you seeing them show up?
I mean, all the time. The nice thing about leaky gut is like also, this is something, same with SIBO, but really leaky gut, especially like it's a product of that poor gut microbiome. And so you can see the changes when people like start to improve their health, improve their diet, exercise, and all that stuff. You can see that this starts to improve.
Can you share some common symptoms or like what you would see in a patient and think that they might have SIBO overgrowth or leaky gut? And I ask because I think so many really common symptoms that people have that often go undiagnosed, it just feels like chronic bloat, chronic constipation, these things that are easy to brush off are really signs of this. So what are some of those symptoms that you would look at for leaky gut and SIBO overgrowth?
SIBO often is bloating, burping, discomfort after eating. I mean, it is. And then with leaky gut, actually, it's interesting because there's a link between autoimmune diseases and leaky gut. There are food sensitivities and leaky gut. And so, like, if you're starting to notice you can't tolerate certain foods, dairy, gluten, like soy, all these things that you used to be able to eat, that's a sign of leaky gut. Autoimmune meaning like you're getting weird, joint symptoms, you're getting fatigue, you're getting things even outside of the gut. And that's often a sign. And both of these are inflammation related illnesses. And so, whenever your body's inflamed, it's like your body goes into a different mode. And so people will feel really tired during this time. So if you've ever seen a pet that's ill, they'll often be like lying around and you can see that they're visibly tired or sleeping. It's because their body, when it's in inflammation mode, knows to conserve resources and like use it to heal. And so that's the same thing with us. Like when you're sick, or in this case, like inflamed, your body is trying to fix the problem there and you won't feel your very best. You won't feel your very biggest energy and focus. And so that's one of the other signs.
Which again, I think is so common for people too. And a lot of the things that we just brush off is like, oh yeah, that's normal, but it shouldn't be. It's a sign that your body is needing help. It's dealing with something. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, check, check, check. I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
all of these symptoms. First of all, what should they do to be able to get that diagnosis? And then what should they do to heal?
So obviously, these are things that you should go to your physician to get checked out, like SIBO. There's a breath test, and there's testing. There's definitely real diagnosable, treatable gut health issues that shouldn't, be missed. So you should definitely see a physician to kind of discuss. I wouldn't want someone to just assume that they had SIBO because they heard us talking about it, because there's a lot of other things it could be also. So make sure you talk to your doctor, get a proper diagnosis and a treatment plan. That is something. And if that is the case, if you are diagnosed with, say, SIBO, if you're diagnosed with leaky gut, if you're diagnosed with gut dysbiosis, which just means like your gut microbiome is kind of off, then it makes sense. Part of your plan is going to be changing your life, both your diet, your lifestyle, your exercise, and you can incorporate all of these things.
And I think it's like, for example, I had gut issues for years of my life, and I would have so many doctors just say, oh, you have bloating. That happens. That's okay. Or like, oh, you get constipated. That's okay. And so I kind of felt brushed off, and I was like, no, I'm so uncomfortable. I know this isn't normal. I can't eat certain foods. And I think that it's just a matter of finding the right doctor that's going to take you seriously. There's something about, I mean, a lot with women's health specifically, which is a whole other
Yeah.
conversation, but
Yeah.
there's something about gut health specifically that feels maybe the symptoms are so normal that it's easier to brush off. So it's like finding a doctor that really does want to do all the tests and test your stool, do the breath test, whatever it's going to take to be able to find you answers.
Yeah, I think here's the thing. I think gut health is super, super popular. Like the Google searches for gut health have more than doubled just in the last 3 years, more than doubled. Okay. But actually, a study by Danone found that people don't really know, like half of Americans are like unaware that that gut microbiome can impact gut health. So, like, there's like a big gap in the knowledge around what is gut health, how does it impact anything besides the gut, what's the gut microbiome, how does it impact immunity, mood, sleep. We're basically saying let's give clarity, get rid of some of that chaos to this conversation so we can empower people to like get a gut glow up.
Yeah, because we don't have to be dealing with feeling bloated after every meal or not being able to tolerate food or feeling sluggish and fatigue or having constipation or diarrhea, or we shouldn't have to deal with that. We can actually have like a healthy gut that makes us feel really good and energized and digest food well.
I'm so happy that everyone's starting to have this conversation because just like you said, like with women's health, these are things that we should have been talking about forever. And I'm so glad that we're talking about it. But now it's like so confusing and there's like chaos and mixed messages. I think the next step is like giving people clarity and making like telling people like, hey, you can actually glow up your entire body yourself if you actually do these things.
You've probably heard me say this before, but lately I've been prioritizing sleep even more than diet or exercise because truly it is the most important factor for any health goal. Whether it's hormone balance, metabolism, mental health, or just being a functioning human, it all starts with quality sleep. And that's why I started using the Wish Garden's Sleepy Nights and Fresh Mornings tincture. And listen, it's not like melatonin where you wake up groggy. This is a gentle, calming blend of herbs like valerian and passion flower that helps you fall asleep and wake up feeling clear and refreshed. I take it before bed as part of my wind down routine right after I do my skincare and legs up the wall while reading, and I sleep so much deeper. If you're in your stressed and wired era or you just want to wake up feeling actually rested, go to wishgardenherbs.com and use code Everygirl20 for 20% off. And so for people who may be feeling overwhelmed of like there's so many different probiotic strains,
Yeah,
there's so
I
many
know.
different possible symptoms. There's so much and they're, high achieving women who are super
Yes.
busy. What are like kind of the first non-negotiables that you would say put these changes in place first to heal your gut?
Number one, I would say, which is a weird thing, it's a non-dietary thing, is going for a sunny walk or like a nature walk. So here's the thing, gut bacteria, they're like living in your colon, but they are very responsive to these external like nature and sunlight cues, and they love when you're moving your body. So that movement mixed with circadian rhythm input is something that is going to improve your gut health. It actually works like a probiotic type, like it's helpful to your gut bacteria for you to be going for a walk. So that's something that I think everybody could incorporate. I think I didn't understand the importance of going outside for that and just doing, quick 15 to 20-minute walk between things that can make a huge impact. So that's number one, super easy to do. Number two is like pick a gut healthy, like a gut friendly food that you can have as your starting point. For example, say you want a yogurt. Let's pick Activia Proactive. It's like billions of live active probiotics. It's 3 grams of fiber. Okay. And it has 10 grams of protein. It's 0 grams of added sugar. So add that. And maybe to that, you add some berries, great source of fiber, polyphenols. This can boost your cognitive health within an hour. So, like, you start adding these things that you didn't necessarily think about before because now you're kind of prioritizing your gut health. That the movement, then the diet, like, that would be number two. And then, like, I kind of talked about circadian rhythms. Circadian rhythms are like some of my favorite interventions for health in general, but definitely for gut health, because I think when you improve your rhythm of like getting sleep, getting sunlight in the morning, it actually has so many effects, but that gut brain connection is one of the first ones to respond.
Because isn't it like your digestive system has to know when it's supposed to speed up
Yes.
and be able to digest more? Is that where it signals from the circadian rhythm from the sun?
Yeah, and our gut bacteria work on a clock also. So, like you said, they need to know, wait, when should we start being active? When should we take a break and rest and get some renewal time? When, same with our hormones, like our hormones need to know, like, is it day or is it night? Like, do I turn on the hormones now or do I wait? Like 80% of our body's processes rely on these circadian rhythms.
Does that also mean, there are certain times of day we should be eating our heavier meals versus our lighter
Yes.
meals? Should we stop eating at a certain time, have breaks between meals? Like, what does all that mean?
I love that. Yeah, that's a great kind of next step. So, say someone's like mastered the first three steps, they're starting to get more light, more sleep, more movement, more probiotic and fiberful foods. So, the next thing, there's something called circadian style fasting. So, circadian rhythm is like the day and night cycle. So, when intermittent fasting started to get really popular, I got a lot of interest and questions around it. And I would say to people, like, okay, yes, intermittent fasting, but do it circadian style. Like what our bodies are meant to be doing, like fasting late in the evening. Before we had refrigerators and Uber Eats, we didn't eat huge meals at midnight, right? It just wasn't possible. And our bodies work on that day and night cycle. So if you're eating huge meals late at night, you are not only going to impact your digestion, but you're going to impact your brain health, your energy, your hormones, all of that. So, eating an earlier dinner, giving your body a little break to digest through the night, And then eating in the morning after like a 12 to 15-hour break is something that I think can be really doable for people. And it's actually what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be eating late into the night and like rolling out of bed and having a huge breakfast. Like that's just not the way our bodies are even designed.
So giving ourselves that night to allow the digestive system to slow down and reset.
Yeah, and if you're gonna intermittent fast, you should eat an early dinner and start your fast early and then be able to have breakfast. You can make it maybe have a late breakfast, and that's a great fast.
What about eating between meals? Giving yourself like a couple hours between meals, or is there not really that much benefit?
The studies are mixed on this. Theoretically, yes. Obviously, you don't want to be spiking your blood sugar and eating like a piece of candy or something sugary every few minutes or every hour, like the typical American food diet. But beyond that, we do believe that having your calories front loaded, like towards the beginning of the day, and like ease off the calories towards the end of the day, that's kind of the rough way. But yeah, if theoretically, of course, it makes sense. I think the way I used to live is like I would eat breakfast and then like at 10 a.m. I'd need some kind of sugar. And then after lunch, I'd need some kind of sugar. And then after like at 3 o'clock, I would need some sugar. It was like I was on this like roller coaster and I would constantly need something to like spike that blood sugar. And that's obviously not the way to go. It's so much better just to have meals and drink water or tea in between.
What are some things that you do for your gut health routine? Like, I'm curious, your supplements, if you have certain
Yeah.
routines, morning routines, things like that for your gut health.
Okay, so like I mentioned, I think before the car accident, that was now like 10 years ago, I didn't really do a lot of nature-based exercises because I used to love them as a kid and in college and even in training, but I kind of went away from it thinking it was like a waste of time, or it was when I had a lot of free time. I really got back to that. Lots of nature time. I think the studies really showed to optimize gut health, you want like an hour a day cumulative. So add it all up of time outdoors. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the woods, but like the more green it is and the more natural it is, the better. You know, going for a walk on the side of a highway is not as good as like going for a nature walk. So that was number one. And then number two is really understanding how to change my diet to like fit this new paradigm. Because if you really just follow the standard American diet, you are not going to be able to eat gut friendly foods. I mean, everything is against it. Basically, like having a bagel and a Starbucks frappuccino, there's no fiber, probiotics, or protein in it. And so really figuring out ways that I could add those into my life. Like for example, told you like an egg scramble with veggies and then a yogurt, like a live active probiotic yogurt, add some berries to it. Great protein source, great fiber, great probiotics. You have probiotic cottage cheese. You have smoothies that you can make that have like protein in them, fiber in them, because you add some chia seeds. You can make a chia seed pudding. So there's a lot of like easy ways that you can incorporate this into your life, but it has to be, it's not like just so obvious living our normal American lives. So those are things like my go-to is like trying to get that nature time early in the day, trying to get that probiotic foods and fiber protein in early in the day so that I can set myself up for a really great day.
It's smart to do that in the morning too, because I think sometimes people, when especially like you have such a busy day, you go through your day being like, sometimes it does get away from you and you're
Yeah,
kind of reacting. And so making sure to get these things in the morning is such a smart way to be like, I'm fitting these things in. I know that I'm fitting them in and I'm setting up the rest of my day. Like my digestive system is probably set up for better success. So it's just an easy way to make sure that you're getting these things in before you're reacting to the day ahead of you.
exactly.
What about supplements? Do you take any kind of supplements for your gut health?
So, I feel like what happens with me is like I go through phases of different things. I'm always looking for new things like omega 3s, magnesium. I love all kinds of things to support my gut health, but it's not like I have something that I'm taking every single day all the time right now, today. But I do go through times where I'm taking so many things for my gut health. Like, for example, digestive enzymes I'll take sometimes when I'm traveling. I'm doing probiotics when I'm traveling, and I do, all kinds of magnesium, omega 3, vitamin D, all things to support that perimenopausal journey with gut health. I wouldn't say there's one size fits all for everyone. I'm always trying to figure out my best routine as well when it comes to getting the foods and the supplements. Always try to do food first as much as possible, but I know like everybody's always busy and traveling, and I try not to kind of rely on supplementing my way out of like a poor diet, for example.
I'm really curious, what are some of your go-to dinners? Because especially if we're trying to have like maybe a more
Yes.
lighter meal earlier on, what are some things that you go to for dinner? I feel like that's like a harder meal than breakfast a lot of times.
Yeah, that's true. That's why I try to get so much done at breakfast because like everything kind of unravels sometimes from there. My whole basis for dinner is always to have a protein source and to have a vegetable source. And the reason why is that the fiber and the phytochemicals from vegetables are super important. And then my protein source, I feel like, is always something that I want to make that as a center, but it doesn't have to, it's never something super complicated, like a protein and veggies, and I'm kind of set for the evening.
And then what time do you stop eating at night? Is there like a certain time that you're like, no more food after this?
Yeah, around 7 p.m. So I like to have like 2 to 3 hours before bed with either little or no food.
Okay, because that allows for the digestive system to like get to the place because it's like really hard to sleep, right? If we're still digesting food, it can disrupt our sleep.
That's the thing. It's like, it's so counterculture to stop eating late at night, but it's so clear from the literature that that's what you're supposed to be doing. And so I try as much, except for like weekends, to really honor that.
Okay, Amy, we are going to play a fun game. I'm calling it Hot or Not Gut Edition. Okay, so
Okay.
it basically is like I'm going to give you some phrases and you're going to say true or false. Okay,
Okay.
first one, you need to take a probiotic supplement every day,
It depends, I would say. It depends on the person, not necessarily for everyone.
but you need to be eating probiotic foods every day.
Yes. Yes.
Three
Yes.
specifically.
Yes.
Got
Okay.
it.
So if the question was, do you need probiotics every day? Absolutely.
But not
In some
necessarily
form.
taking a
Yes.
supplement. Yes, totally. Okay, celery juice heals your gut.
I would say it's false because celery juice is amazing and it's great vegetable juice, just like any vegetable is. But to think that it has magical gut healing properties is just false.
That's a big myth buster because I see especially a lot of people on gut talk on TikTok being like,
Yes.
celery juice is the
It's like the
miracle. Yes.
yeah, the panacea of all your ills.
Yeah, literally. So that's a good myth buster. Cutting gluten is the secret to better digestion, true or
Oh,
false?
totally.
Would you say that gluten as a whole is negative for the gut, or is it more dependent on individual people, but like as a whole, it's not bad
Okay,
right
so I
off the
used to
bat?
think as a whole it's bad, but if you look at like sourdough, if you look at high sprouted bread, it can be like really a great source of fiber, which is food for our gut. So it's not necessarily negative in that way.
Do you eat sourdough?
Yeah.
And it also has probiotics in it, right?
Yeah. And like if you, so they're not live probiotics, but they are like probiotic byproducts. The other thing you can do to bread is put it in the freezer before you toast it because that kind of adds more resistant starch, which acts like kind of like fiber in our gut.
Whoa, is that true for pasta, like other grains as well?
Yes.
Whoa, so just you freeze it, you get it cold first.
So for pasta, potatoes, and rice, you can put in the refrigerator overnight and before you heat it up. And for bread, it's the freezer.
What a good tip. I love that.
Yes.
Kombucha is a must-have for gut health.
No, false. Not a must have by any means.
Could it be a good addition, like a good way to get in those
Yeah,
probiotics?
low sugar if you get a low sugar one. Yeah.
Okay, because I've heard, obviously a lot of them are, this is a healthy drink, but then they have all the sugar in it. So just
Yes,
making sure that
that's the
it's a
thing.
lower
Yeah,
sugar option.
exactly.
Coffee on an empty stomach is bad.
For most people, yes. I think if you're having a splash of milk in it or like some kind of, and it's not super harsh, like I think it's fine. But I think a lot of people will have coffee and then have GI issues and then wonder why they're having that. So, yeah, it can be okay for people. But if you're having some gut issues, that could be it.
That's a good place to start if you're having coffee on an empty stomach and GI issues. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, what's better for your gut to drink first thing in the morning on an empty stomach? Warm lemon water, a greens powder, celery juice, or something else?
First thing in the morning, I would say
Yes,
the water for sure.
water. Do you like to do the lemon water? Or is it just
Um,
like just hydrating, period?
there's no real good medical evidence for adding lemon to your water, but water in general, and if you want to add lemon, amazing.
Hydration first thing, though, is like that's the
Yes.
important piece.
Yes.
What is your ideal lunch for gut health?
A salad or a soup with veggies. And again, another protein source on it. So the reason why I love salads or soups with veggies is like you're getting your fiber right there. It's super easy and it's convenient. And most people can do a salad for lunch.
I know I've heard a lot of people talk about the difference of like raw veggies versus cooked
Mhm.
veggies for digestion. Do you
Mhm.
have a preference on that?
Yeah, I think especially when you're healing your gut, you might not be able to do a ton of raw veggies. It may be irritating, and especially like that cauliflower and the Brussels sprouts and the broccoli. So be careful with the raw veggies. You may be better off having them cooked, especially in the beginning. It's like a muscle, right? Like you can't, on your first day of eating fiber, if you eat 30 grams of fiber when you're used to eating 10, you're going to suffer. It's gonna give you a lot of gas and bloating, so you gotta just be careful. Like, it's much easier to digest, like, baby spinach, for example, or like squash or sweet potato than it will be to digest cauliflower or broccoli raw.
I think that's a really important tip because a lot of times people they have been eating a standard American diet and then they want to get healthy, which is amazing, and they go right to salads and they're like, I can't eat salads, it hurts my stomach so bad. And so just knowing the difference of trying a cooked vegetables, like cooking them can help the digestion, having them in like a warm stew versus a raw salad can make a difference if you do feel irritation.
That's right.
Okay, fill in the blank. If everyone had this one habit, it would change their life.
If everyone could eat gut-friendly foods, it would change their life.
Mm, love it. Best advice you've ever received?
To run your own race.
Ooh, I love
Yeah.
the one rather than kind of like comparing and getting into other people's race.
Yeah, like, it's so easy to be like, "Oh, this person's running faster. What's happening over there?" And, like, it's just distracting you from your own path.
I love that advice. Last question for you, Amy, a book that changed your life.
This is so unconventional, but it really is the one. When I was going right after that accident, I read Tim Ferriss's 4 Hour Work Week. And I had always been in a very traditional medical practice. Like I had gone through 20 years of schooling and training, and I didn't even know that there was a world outside of that. And that was my first intro to this world of internet and entrepreneurship. And it just was such an eye opening experience because I realized I could do the work that I love in a different form and a different format. And that's what got me to kind of writing blogs and being on social media.
Wow. I was also curious about that. If we had more time, I would ask you more about that because it is always interesting for me when someone that has this career like a doctor turn it into their own entrepreneurship journey. And so that's kind of where that seed was planted.
And it was so hard because it was so cringy in the beginning, and everybody was like, "What are you doing?" And like, "Aren't you a doctor? Like, why are you on it?" And when I first started, I kept asking myself, like, why am I doing this again? And I kept thinking, like, one day I'll write a book and like I'll have all this data and like all these notes. And so, yeah, that's how I kind of, and I always talk about the fact that when you heal your gut, that helps you find your gifts because you heal your gut and you can then think better because that gut brain connection is connected and you get more clarity in your life. So, whatever you're doing. So, not only does it change your health, but it literally changes the direction of your life.
Whoa, that is
Yeah.
so powerful. I've said before, like, I health is the most important currency because when we are like really well and vibrant and we have all this clarity and vivaciousness, we have more energy to accomplish more. But it all really does stem from the gut. Like the gut is the source of everything. And that's what allows us this like clarity and vibrancy in order to live our best lives.
100%.
Love it. What a note to end on. Where can people find you?
I'm over at Dr. Amy Shah on social media. I'm at amymdwellness.com. That's my personal site. And if I know that Activia has their site, you can get more information there. That is at activia.com. And I am mostly am on Instagram, but I'm also on TikTok and I have my website and my newsletter, all that stuff. So you can find me there.
Amazing. You have such a great Instagram. I had to check out your TikTok. I'm not as big on there, but your Instagram is so informative and amazing. So I highly recommend people go check it out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It was so informative.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was so fun.
I hope you enjoyed the episode. I know I sure did. Please do not forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It really makes a huge difference for our show so we can keep growing and bringing the content that you love. If you want more info, you can find us at the Everygirl Podcast on Instagram or theeverygirlpodcast.com. Talk to you next week.